you can't be a leader of someone and hold someone accountable to anything if they don't know what's expected of them, right? What communication does is it provides you with leverage, right? So when Patrick and I start working together, there's specific expectations. And hey, Patrick, I expect you to do this thing every week. So now we have a verbal contract that I've communicated to him, and he goes, yeah, totally, I get it. I will do that. So if he doesn't do that, now I can be like, hey, do you remember when you said you were going to do that thing and we talked about it? That's leverage. Instead of like, hey man, why aren't you doing this thing?
Welcome to the Patrick Hilario podcast. We are interviewing one of my good friends and mindset coach, Gavin McHale, and he works with Early to Rise team with Craig Ballantyne there. I'm actually rocking their 11 out of
Yeah,
10 hat.
mine's up
Gavin's
behind
got his
me.
in the back. I got the
Yeah.
the coffee mug, which my green screen's apparently not letting
Look
me
at
take a
you.
look at.
Look at you. I don't even have the coffee mug. So, and I had to
Oh,
fight to get a hat. So,
nice. The amount of like compliments I'll get on the hat is pretty crazy. I'll just travel around and people like, yo, where'd you get the hat? And I'll be
yeah.
like, you gotta follow Craig's team.
Yeah. You gotta, unfortunately, that's what did Alex Hormozy say about the acquisition hat? Earned, not bought. You can't
Mhm.
buy them anywhere. You just got to earn them through being a part of the program.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And
Yeah.
then yeah, beyond excited to be chatting with Gavin today. As quick little intro on him, he was in the fitness industry for well over 10 years, built up his six-figure hybrid coaching business before transitioning into the business mentorship. He is local to Winnipeg, so it'd
Yeah.
be pretty awesome just meeting people on Craig's team that were in Winnipeg as well, all places, right? Like,
Of all
Winterpeg,
places.
and now he's really dedicating himself to helping his coaching clients not just improve their mindset, but become better leaders, improve those leadership skills, and scale their businesses, where he's been an amazing help to my own business as well. I would probably be stuck doing all the roles, wearing all the hats if it wasn't for Gavin. So super grateful to have worked with him.
Well, and still not realizing how much amazing success you had. I remember that call. I still remember that call where I was like, dude, do you recognize what you've done? You're like, I don't know. I think maybe because you were just so, and it's a good thing. You were just so focused on the process, so focused on just like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing that you hadn't taken that moment to just step back and be like, whoa, I did something incredible here. So I just want to encourage other people to recognize, if you're running a business, if you're, listening to this for real estate, or if you're trying to get a business off the ground, just recognizing that, you know, every small step is a pretty powerful step because you created this thing out of nothing. So encourage yourself for that and give yourself a pat on the back every once in a while.
Yeah, no kidding. I was telling some of my other students and good friends about the story that you just mentioned there, Gavin, where yeah, I was just so stuck in the business. And then when I
Yeah.
take calls with you, it was just like, okay, well, you get this meta view, you've actually accomplished quite a bit, and it's important to have that. I find that's one of the like the greatest moments I had with coaching with you was just like, yeah, I've already accomplished something. Like,
Yeah.
left the teaching in public school to run our own coaching business, got success, help students get success.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Sometimes we're just like so in it that you just
Yeah.
don't get that step back to be like, cool, like we're doing something great here.
Yeah. And I think that's, to dive into the mindset stuff, that's where a lot of people get stuck, right? Is like we forget we forget the progress we've had and we're so focused on the mistakes we make or the day-to-day stuff that it can bog you down. I mean, no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing the most passive of passive businesses or whether you're actively in it, you made a really good post the other day of just like the dark side of owning properties where your tenants just left crap everywhere, right? Like I that stuff grades on you, and if you don't take time to zoom out or have someone else in your corner who's willing to see the forest for the trees, for lack of a better term, I think that you will get bogged down, you will get stuck, and you won't realize how far you've come. And to a lot of what I've coached with you is the more that you can realize and be grateful for the good things that have happened, the more good things are going to come to you.
Yeah, it's so true. And I immediately thought about that when I was like taking photos, kind of making a little bit of a checklist of like, hey, who am I delegating this work to? Who do I got to call to get all this junk out? And again, like take that step back. And I was like, you know what? I'm grateful for this just because one, we get to pass on work to the team. Two, things could be worse. Like after I
Totally.
kind of did the whole checklist, I was like, this place could be trashed a little bit more. Not that I want that, but like could be
They could have
way
really
worse.
got after it here.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. Sweet. Yeah, so pretty excited for this first question here. I know you joined the Early to Rise team with Craig Ballantyne there in 2021, and that was a huge move, right? Now, I guess could you like share some of the insights into like your roles and responsibilities there and like how that kind of aligns with your passion of like, helping your coaching clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, you had mentioned that I started in the personal training world and I kind of just fell into that from the hockey world. And I recognized that I didn't particularly love the actual personal training. What I loved was the people, and I loved helping people build confidence and helping people see that they could do things that they didn't know they could do. And that's very easily transferable in the gym, right? It's like I couldn't lift this before, now I can, or this hurt before, now it doesn't, right? So that was amazing. But I knew I just had this feeling that there was more. And I wanted more. And that got me into the business coaching space, which was good. But at the same time, still wasn't it. And so built that up and it went really well, but realized a few things that I didn't love doing, didn't love the marketing side, didn't love constantly having to be kind of like on the sales side. And there are people who love that, but I just didn't particularly love it. What I wanted to do was I wanted to coach. I wanted to help people grow. I wanted to help people just like I did in personal training, but I wanted to do it in kind of a bigger scale. And so I got the opportunity to work with Craig, and Craig Ballantyne, someone that I had followed for 10 years probably. He's been in the game a long time at Early to Rise. And so what I am able to do now is I just have to focus on making sure that I'm delivering the absolute best to my clients. So we have a sales team, we have a marketing team. It's a big enough business to do that. And I get to just deliver. And the big part of what I deliver is I like to call it kind of twofold, is a combination of business coaching and life coaching. So the business coaching side is some of the stuff we talked about around creating systems and around scaling your business. And even, we even do talk about marketing. We have a lot of materials on that. But the side that I love most and connecting the two as well is the operations of between your ears, the systems of what's going on in your mindset, and helping people recognize where there are places that may be holding them back and maybe stopping them from the success that I know they can have, and they consciously know they can have. And where that came from for me, just to give people some context, is I was a very high level hockey player and probably had all the skills to play professional hockey. But what tripped me up was I had no idea how to deal with failure. So when that started coming, I couldn't handle it. And I had no idea how to reset my mind or shift my stories about myself. So all these limiting beliefs just started piling up on me. And I essentially self-sabotaged my way into, a complete meltdown that led to the end of my career. So being able to have that story allows me to like see, hey, I've been here. I can see where you're probably missing the boat. And let's make sure that we realign that before you try and grow with this poor mindset.
No,
Long-winded story.
no, that's awesome. And then no, yeah, basically it's coming from before, like you're kind of doing everything in your previous like
Yeah,
coaching
totally.
business, right? Yeah. And then transferring onto Craig's team is like, hey, now you can focus on like your zone of genius is what like you and the team call it too, right? It's like, hey,
Yeah.
Gavin's just focused on delivering that business and life coaching to the clients because I mean that's what you're good at, that's what you enjoy, and that's
Yeah.
really like the gift that you have to offer to these clients.
Yeah. And what's cool about that is I allow the marketing team to do their thing and I allow the sales team to do their thing and they allow me to do my thing. And I really struggled with it at first because there's this really, you know, this movement towards how, you know, being an entrepreneur, being your own boss and getting out of the golden handcuffs and all that stuff. And, but when I really looked at it, I recognized that taking this role as what I like to call like an intrapreneur gave me an opportunity to learn and become a better coach faster because I was only focused on that. And I get so many reps on a regular basis. Like I'm managing 25 one-on-one clients right now. I never was able to get up to that level with my old business because I was doing the sales, doing the marketing, doing this, doing that. I didn't have time for that. Now it's like I coach and then like the majority of my time is coaching and then I can spread the message on podcasts like this, or I can go and speak at events, or I'm writing my book. Like it gives me so much more freedom to do these other things as well. And not to mention it's like a really nice, I wouldn't say it's a stable income because, you know, he could fire me at any point, but it's really nice to know that I don't have to go out and pound the pavement to get those clients. They're there. And I just have to make sure that I show up and provide good service for them.
Yeah, your time is just like way scaled at this point. And yeah, you can spend time doing these podcasts. That gets you more leads, but then those leads are handled by the sales and marketing team. So
Exactly. That's the
yeah.
beautiful part of it. And I get to, you know, hopefully give whoever's listening a little glimpse into like, you know, sharing my message. And as I like to call it, you know, preaching the gospel of what
Mhm.
I know.
Yeah, no, I'm excited because I love that story you have where you were on that path to become basically a professional hockey player, and then just kind of those blockages that you always talk about came up from like, childhood, and that
Yeah.
led to quote unquote what seemed like a failure, but that led to basically you being able to share what was your pain is now your gift to all your other clients of how they can like transcend not just the mindset, but also like taking those gifts and what you've learned in the past to like apply them into your business now.
Yeah. And I think there's an important piece in there for anybody listening that we often, you know, we grow up and we have strengths and weaknesses, right? It's like, hey, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. And I would say for a very long time, you know, to keep it simple, one of my quote unquote weaknesses was my mindset, right? I was very emotional, like I didn't regulate my emotions very well. I allowed the losses to really beat me up, right? The failures to really beat me up. And so we often like we get told or we get shown these things and then we kind of create a story about it as like, oh, this is a weakness of mine. And in one of my presentations, I talk about Tim Ferriss, who I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. He has his book, Tools of the Titans. And in that, at the start, he does these like what patterns he found from all these, you know, with people like Richard Branson and Mark Zuckerberg and all these incredibly successful people. And one of the patterns was he said almost every single person took an obvious weakness and turned it into a competitive advantage. And the only difference between a weakness and a competitive advantage is the way you tell the story, right? I've just told the story in two different ways. I was weak mentally, bad emotional regulation. It led to the end of my hockey career. And because I was weak mentally, and then I dove in and learned that stuff after the fact, I'm the best person to teach it to people that are millionaires, right? Because they've never faced this before. And because I faced it on such a large scale, I can then teach it to them in a way that like I know exactly what they're going through.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And it kind of blows my mind because I mean, I've seen you maybe not, we wouldn't call like a finished product because you're still super young, but like I didn't know you from that past, right? So
Right.
for me to like imagine you kind of losing your cool, it kind of it seems so distant. But then as you share the story, I'm like, okay, yeah, totally like that background growth that, people don't necessarily see until they get to actually hear your story.
Yeah. And it's funny you talk about like a finished product. Cause yeah, I mean, I think that there's still lots of growth, but, this huge, almost 180 transformation that you didn't see the start of it. You've just seen this side. Rich Roll has a great way that he put it is like, massive transformations, or as he said it, like reinventions are really just a whole bunch of really small things stacked on top of one another along a long enough time frame, right? And that's what we forget is like I often forget about my transformation. We talked about off the hop how you forgot about this massive transformation you went through from literally teacher, like one of the most stable kind of 9 to 5 mindset jobs, to real estate investor and real estate investing coach. And I think because you just took these small steps and you just kept building and building and building and building, you almost forgot that you had made that transformation. Right. And so to anybody who's in it right now, who's trying to transform, who's trying to, shift or reinvent themselves, it's literally the tiniest things that you wouldn't think about. You think that it's going to be this one big leap, but what's going to happen is you're going to wake up one day and go, holy shit, I'm a different person. And that's when the real fun stuff starts. Cause then you're like, who am I? I don't even know. Right. So that's kudos to you on that. And I appreciate you saying that, because that shows me that I truly have made a shift when people who didn't know me before are like, I couldn't even imagine seeing that.
It almost seems so like foreign of like, okay, that was a previous version of
That's right.
Gavin,
That's
basically.
right. 1.0.
Yeah. Always continue to grow. And
Mhm.
now you touched a little bit on how you help these entrepreneurs and business owners with mindset. So, yeah, maybe tell us a little bit on how that plays like a crucial role both in the personal and the business growth. Like, I guess, what are some mindset shifts or practices that you often like recommend to your coaching clients? I know I have a couple that I
Yeah.
always still take on, but yeah, can you share that with our audience there?
Yeah. I think, knowing you, I think we have pretty similar thoughts on this. I think the biggest thing for people to recognize is that um, we weren't taught this in school, but like the way you show up, like your inner reality, your inner world, your thoughts, your feelings, your judgments, all of that is reflected in what you see in your life. So your reality is actually a reflection of how you're showing up. People don't recognize that, right? They think that their reality is external, like what's happening outside of them is like this external thing. But, I know you talk about this too, Patrick. If you take responsibility, like radical responsibility for your life, you recognize that you are actually responsible for everything in your life. And that doesn't mean that it's your fault when bad things happen, but you're still responsible for it, right? It is your responsibility to deal with. And you can deal with it one of two ways, right? You can fall further and into the trap, or you can choose to rise up. And so I think that piece is a really important part of the narrative. The other thing is, the other things we weren't taught is about our subconscious and conscious brain. I know this was a surprise to me, is that our subconscious brain, which is our beliefs and our habits and our identity, that makes up 95 to 98% of our brain. So the actual conscious, the logic, the decision making, the stuff that probably has gotten a lot of people a lot of success that are listening to this, that stuff's 2 to 5% of your brain, right? And if you are in a place where you think you should be further ahead based on your skill set, or where you think like based on, okay, like I should be here and I'm not, but I have all the tools and I have all the strategies, I can guarantee you, because I've seen it too many times, it's your mindset, it's your subconscious mind. And what that is it's the stories that you've told yourself in the past that served you at a time. So for me, I'll give you a great example. When I was bullied in grade 7, I told myself the story that I got to fit in and I got to do whatever I can to fit in. And Patrick's met me. I'm 6'7". It's hard for me to fit in. Um, so do whatever you can to fit in, bend your morals, bend your, I didn't even really know who I was because I was so busy trying to fit in. Right. But that story protected me when I was in grade 7 and when I was afraid of getting made fun of and being left out. Unfortunately, when I was 32 years old trying to build my business, that story was still running in the background and I hadn't made that conscious. There's a great quote from Carl Jung. I'm like the quote machine today from Carl Jung, who's the godfather of modern psychology. And he says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. And that's what I thought. I thought this is my lot in life. I'm just always going to have like a small business and whatever, I'm just kind of grind it out. But I made that conscious. And then when you make it conscious and you become aware of it, your subconscious stories and your limiting beliefs, that's when you can change it. And that's when like everything that you touch starts to turn to gold because you're coming from a truly different place. You're embodying a different type of person. And that's like, those are the types of things that are really hard to explain. But when you feel it, you feel it, like you had to step into the identity of real estate investor before you had a real estate portfolio. You had to be the $1 million real estate investor in order to make those decisions and do those scary things. If you were still in the identity of a teacher, you would not have, made the scary decision to buy the duplex that you literally couldn't afford. Right. So I'll encourage people, look at where you're out of alignment. And then if I were to say like, well, why aren't you doing the thing? Where do you say, yeah, but wherever you go, yeah, that all makes sense. But that's your limiting belief. That's where you're stopping yourself. And that's the belief that needs to be shifted and rewired so that you can take a different path.
Yeah, kind of the analogy I use for the limiting beliefs is it's like almost like if you're doing that like track or like when you're running sprints, but then you have the parachutes behind you.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
those are
totally.
just like they're slowing you down. And then when you like finally like realize, oh, like I have these parachutes, I have these limiting beliefs, cut that. And then things just like way easier. You put in way less effort, things just kind of come naturally. And it's funny because I used to think that this stuff was like woo-woo. And
Yeah.
then the
So did
more
I.
that I just started practicing it and like making sure, okay, like where is that like childhood wound of that, Carl Jung talks about,
Yeah.
where that's just blocking us and it's just manifesting now when we're a little bit older. And it's way easier once you kind of identify those limiting beliefs. Uncomfortable, of course,
Yeah.
but I look at it as like, hey, deal with it now because it just will get worse when you're like, 50 or 40
Well,
or whatever, right?
exactly. Like which discomfort do you want to deal with? Right. Like which trade-off are you going to make? Do you want to deal with the discomfort of facing this problem and changing, rewiring your brain, which is probably going to be uncomfortable for an hour or a couple days, maybe a week? Or do you want, because like I know some people have some real, capital T trauma. I get it. Like, and I don't, I'm a straight white male from Canada. Like I get it. I had it pretty easy, but I do think trauma is subjective, right? Like I thought that being bullied was traumatic in grade 7 because I didn't have anything to compare it to. So whatever your story is, like, are you willing to face that discomfort for a day or a week? Or are you going to stay away from that and face the discomfort of living your entire life below what you could do in like mediocrity? Because that is like a whole different kind of painful discomfort. And it's, I would imagine, way worse, right? Death by 1,000 cuts. It's that's got to be brutal. And so I mean, I think you and I are both, we're still like working towards the highest potential of what we can achieve, but that's where the fun is. Like I love that.
Just like, yeah, finding all those little limiting beliefs or bad habits and just like slowly like deleting at them. I think you
Yeah.
mentioned when we were on a coach call before, it's like part of you or maybe your past self like actually enjoys some of those like bad habits.
Yeah.
One of the big things that you helped me out with was dealing with like staying up late. So now, like before, I'd be like, "Oh, piece of shit for staying up late. I got to wake up early, go to work." But then we talked about it. I was like, "Hey, as a kid, I was kind of denied staying up late. So then,
Right.
anytime I would stay up late was because I was with like friends or cousins, a family event. It was always something fun, or just staying up and watching like a movie or something.
Yeah.
So now it's like I'll plan that in. Like it's still something I enjoy, but now
Yeah.
it's like intentional time to stay up late and then not feel bad about it in the morning. So that's
And
been a
that's the
huge.
thing. Yeah. Like you're not beating yourself up for it, right?
Mhm.
Like you're like, I intentionally decided to do that. So I'm actively like, I'm okay with either being tired or with not doing my morning work block. And like, I'm just like, I'm intentionally making that decision. And what that does for our brains, right? Reticular activating system, which is what, tells your conscious brain what to focus on. I'm sure people have heard that on this podcast. Um, if you continue to stack losses and beat yourself up, as I'm sure most people, high performers do this, right? We beat ourselves up all the time. Well, your brain, your reticular activating system is going to continue looking for opportunities to beat yourself up.
Mhm.
But once you start, I like to call it stacking wins. And then when you even say, yeah, I stayed up late intentionally because I wanted to spend time with my friends, now that's goes in the win column and not in the loss column. So now we kind of keep stacking those wins instead of that being a loss.
Yeah, totally. It's like you're basically like leading yourself towards a win as opposed to like leading yourself towards like extra punishment.
Exactly. Right. A lot of us are just so used to that extra punishment and that self judgment that it's just like what we fall into, not recognizing that that really doesn't serve us in any way.
Yeah, totally. So I guess with that topic of like becoming a leader, that's essential for scaling a business. What are some like key leadership qualities or like skills that you believe every business owner or even coach or investor should develop?
Yeah. So I think the most important leadership skill is leadership of yourself. So what I mean by that is, it could be as simply explained by like, well, how can you expect to do someone to do something that you're not willing to do? Like that's the one thing. I know there's a great picture of you in your first home with the hammer, you're like, or with the drill and you're like doing the thing, right? So it's like you've done the thing and you continue to be willing to do the thing, even though you can now delegate, right? Because it's a better use of your time to do other things. But the other thing is like, are you embodying the type of person that you want them to be? And so that's where it gets a little more sticky, right? Is like, if you expect them to be early for a meeting, you can't always be late for meetings. Now you are the leader, so you do get kind of let off the hook because no one's there to give you shit for it. But at the same time, like you got to make sure that you're the one showing up. And what happens when you really embody the type of person that you want your team to be? When you do that, you give them the opportunity to do it as well. And that's kind of like an energetic exchange. So one of the things that I always like, our head coach at Early to Rise, his name's Daniel Woodrum, and he is one of the best leaders that I've ever seen. And it's because he, like, there has never been a time where he has said anything is beneath him or where he has ever um like pushed something off that felt like this is not for me, you deal with this. He's always willing to take responsibility for, if something, even if I'm totally screw up and he had nothing to do with it, he's like, I'm sorry, I should have and could have done this for you or done this for this situation. And that allows me to go, you know what? No, like that's on me. I get it. I get what you're saying, but that's on me and I'll fix it. So he gives me the opportunity to take responsibility. Right. So I think leadership of self and taking radical responsibility is the number one tenet of being a good leader. And then the second piece, and this is as far as I'll go with it, because I think these, if you master these, you're good, is over communication. Like being able, and this doesn't even mean like necessarily like, because if you don't have a team, let's say if you're someone listening to this and you don't have a team, how can you better communicate with your partner or better communicate with your parents, right? Because over communication allows everyone to know, almost annoyingly so, where they stand and what is expected of them. You can't you can't be a leader of someone and hold someone accountable to anything if they don't know what's expected of them, right? What communication does is it provides you with leverage, right? So when Patrick and I start working together, there's specific expectations. And hey, Patrick, I expect you to do this thing every week. So now we have a verbal contract that I've communicated to him, and he goes, yeah, totally, I get it. I will do that. So if he doesn't do that, now I can be like, hey, do you remember when you said you were going to do that thing and we talked about it? That's leverage. Instead of like, hey man, why aren't you doing this thing? Well, I didn't know I was supposed to do it. What are you talking about? Right. So I heard this great thing, contracts make the best of friends, right? Write it down, make sure everyone's on the same page, make sure that everyone agrees to the things, and then everybody has leverage, right? Because if I'm your employee and I sign a contract and I crush it, then next year when it comes time for me to ask for a raise, I go, look, I did everything and I nailed it. On the flip side, if you need to fire someone or you need to have a hard conversation, you go, look, you said you were going to do all these things. You didn't do them. So it takes away the like emotional, subjective side. And it's just like, it's objective. Like I had that with one of my clients where he set clear KPIs, 60 days for a new client or a new team member. And at the end of the 60 days, he just slid the roles and responsibility KPI sheet over to them on the other side of the table. And he said, what do you think? And they're like, yeah, I didn't do very well. And he's like, we can't keep you on. Like you had 60 days to do this stuff and you didn't do it. And it was like, it was such a respectful conversation because no one thought that it was an emotional decision. It was just very clear. So over communicate and be in leadership of yourself. Take responsibility for yourself, and that allows others to do the same.
Yeah, no, I love that with and it's almost sounds easy, right? Of like, oh, just lead yourself, you'll be a good
Yeah.
leader. Just communicate well, and you'll be scaling the business. But it's so true that it's something that you gotta one embody. It's got to be something that you become until you are that person,
Yep.
and it is a learnable skill, right? Like you can learn to lead yourself better. That's exactly what you guys do at Early to Rise. It's exactly what you help your clients with. You
Yep.
can learn to over communicate in a way that's beneficial, not just for you, but also for your team, right? Like by giving them those KPIs and having them do that self evaluation, it's there to help them. It's really there to be like, hey, cool, you're on track. Let's keep it up. Or, hey, you're
Yeah.
not on track. You could get better. Maybe that means you're getting better at a different company, or maybe that means you're getting better here if you just communicate what you need, right?
And maybe it also means that you needed this lesson to go into your next whatever it is that you do, right? Like because if they continue getting let off the hook for the same things, they're never going to learn the lesson, right? So what a lot of people have the pattern of is they get into a new job and they kill it at the start, and then they kind of like basically come back to the baseline, come back to like their norm, right? So if you can catch them before they come back to the norm, that's when they're going to actually grow. If you don't catch them before they come back to their norm, you need to tell them, hey, this is your norm and it's not good enough. That hurts enough that they're going to start to change, even if that's not at your company. Right. And I think that's a huge piece of responsibility and of like, if you want to be a leader, you're going to have hard conversations, but knowing that it doesn't need to be a conversation where you're going against one another. It's like, hey, we both want to go in the same direction. I want my company to succeed and you want you to succeed. If that's not together, that's fine, but let's make sure that we make a decision that helps both of us.
totally just making it like win-win, even if it's
Exactly.
difficult in the present moment.
Right. Exactly. And you know, they might be pissed off, right? They might get pissed off, but in the long run, you know, in a year or 5 years or 10 years, that team member that he slid the thing across to, even if they're still furious now, 6 months on, in 5 years, they're going to go, he was right. You know, and then, you know, they're going to be like, I wish that I had listened to him then. Right.
There's always a lesson hidden there.
There's always
Just takes
something hidden.
time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time and experience, you know.
Oh, it's exciting. So yeah, I guess kind of wrap things all up. I know there's a lot of actionable steps that we kind of looked at is, hey, these people, if they want to scale, it's like improve those leadership skills, improve those communication skills, start finding those limiting beliefs and
Yep.
really make the unconscious conscious so that, get rid of that discomfort now so it doesn't manifest itself in 5, 10, 20 years, who knows? And I guess to kind of leave the audience with little bit more advice coming from you, whether these are aspiring coaches, aspiring entrepreneurs. Um, what's something that they could like focus on to really achieve their goals?
So this is going to sound like so pedestrian. So people are going to be like, oh, come on, I need something bigger. But hear me out. Take any action. Okay. Now, Alex Hormozy says it really well when he says, like, it doesn't, we always think that we need to like take the perfect action in perfect alignment with our goal, right? So if I want to be a millionaire, I've got to take this exact action. But really, all you have to do is take any action that's in any way in that direction. Because even if it's completely off base, you're going to get enough feedback that you're going to move towards the right line, right? So take any action, preferably it's an action that's scary that you don't particularly want to take, because those are going to be, if you can start getting used to taking scary actions and doing uncomfortable things, you're going to have to do those anyway. So you may as well start doing them now. So take any action, preferably a scary one. And then instead of, you know, when you inevitably do screw it up or make a mistake or it doesn't go as planned, instead of spending all your time and energy beating yourself up and judging yourself, recognize that that's where the lesson is, right? So that's where you're going to get the feedback. So go, you know, a great way to, a good antidote for judgment is curiosity. So if you find yourself judging yourself and going, I should be further ahead, or I can't believe I made that mistake, shift to curiosity into, well, why did I make that mistake? Or what was the mistake that I made? Or what can I learn from this? Because that's going to move you forward faster. And then, so take action, ask yourself, you know, get curious and get feedback, and then celebrate the wins. Because, like I said, we need the evidence that we are who we say we are. We need to keep stacking wins in the right direction. We need to keep casting votes for the best version of ourselves. We're going to cast some votes for the wrong version of ourselves too. It happens, but can we cast more? Can we win more than we lose? If we can do that, then we're going to be continuing to move in the right direction. And you'll be surprised at what happens and at how fast you can grow and see success when you start getting feedback from your mistakes. That's a long-winded version of what I'll leave people with.
Well, it's huge. Again, it sounds so simple, like just take the action, but it's when we get caught up in just overthinking things like, oh, you spend like hours just thinking about something. Whereas, hey, maybe deep down inside, you just know, okay, I should just probably pick up the phone
Yeah.
and then have that hard conversation with that employee or pick up that phone and make that sales call.
Make that
Or
cold call, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's not, I'll leave it with this. Your enemy is not taking the wrong action, it's taking no action.
yeah.
That's your enemy. Because taking the wrong action gives you tons of feedback. Like, I still remember my god awful sales calls where it was terrible. My pitch was pathetic because I learned from them. I learned from those. I was like, okay, I need to practice this more. And then I'd be in the mirror My wife will tell you, I'd be in the mirror practicing my pitch, but guess what? I started selling more, right? And it's because of those bad ones that I learned, okay, that's where I need to improve, right? So I think there's something there.
Yeah. And even with like once you make that little change, yeah, I got this from you. Maybe you didn't tell me like directly, but it's like attaching, okay, what was that feeling of the win? It's like, hey,
Mm.
maybe I made that sale because I was practicing the sales calls and working on my tonality, and then going back to not just review the sale, but then like look at, okay, what's that feeling of like, hey, this is working out, and then
Yeah.
pay almost attention to that. So that's been a huge
Yeah,
help for me.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Cool, man. Hey, that was an awesome little interview there. Learned a ton. Hope everyone at home learned a boatload as well. And quickly let us know where they can reach out to you, Gavin.
Yeah. Instagram is the best place at Gavin McHale one. Just lots of little mindset nuggets that I'm sharing on there. Um, we also have we just dropped a YouTube video that is a daily money mindset visualization. And so we actually just got a URL for it. So dailymoneyattraction.com will take you directly to that video. 10 minute, less than 10 minutes. And it's a little visualization. You can even do it while you're like walking or driving. Just don't close your eyes while you're doing it then. And some of the results we've been getting for people, it's been crazy, who've just been listening to this once a day for like a week, and they're like, their sales just exploded. So dailymoneyattraction.com, or come and check me out at Gavin McHale one on Instagram.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for spending time with us today, Gavin. I'll be putting those links down below in the description. So make sure if you guys are wanting to check that out down below. And again, that's
Attraction.
dailymoneyattraction.com.
Yes. Thanks,
Sweet. Hey,
Patrick.
thanks so much, Gavin. That was awesome. Looking forward to seeing you. And then if you guys don't know, you could also reach out to them on Early to Rise. That's with Craig Valentine there. And
Yep.
they put in some amazing training, both online and in person. If you guys have a chance, seriously, like you got to check out the Mexico Mastermind, like the Unstoppable Mastermind there.
Yeah, baby.
Like changed my life completely. I'm actually putting money away to go back to visit everyone on the
Nice.
team and continue to just keep growing, make the
Yeah.
connections. The people you meet there are awesome too. Like the content's amazing. Like you're just gonna come out there with like so much step by steps and tasks you can use to improve your business. But the people you'll meet is like that's where the
It's where
value
the
truly
magic's
is.
at. And
Yeah.
actually, January 2024 is most likely going to be the last one, at least for a while, in Cancun. We're going to be moving to some different spots in the States. That'll still be awesome spots. But if you want to come to Cancun, and January, if you're from Winnipeg, January is a good time to come to Cancun. Yeah, it is open right now for enrollment. But again, you can just let me know if you have questions. Follow me at Gavin McHale one, send me a message, and I'll get you in touch with the right people.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much, Gavin.
Thanks, Patrick. That was amazing.
The knowledge I had with real estate wasn't that great, and that's when I knew I needed a mentor to guide me through the steps of minimizing my mistakes and obtaining property. It kept me accountable with the limited time I had after the long hours at work. It taught me things I wouldn't have learned without a mentor.
Thank you to Patrick. Big helped me with pretty much everything ever since I started. So big shout out to Patrick and Alliance.
Nice. Yeah, Nick's an action taker, so we can help guide you, but you still got to do work, and
Yep.
Nick is a testimonial for that.
Sure.
And thank you again, Patrick, for this program. It changed my life. It changed my mindset. It changed everything. That was the best six weeks of my life.
I just want to give a shout out to my man Patrick. Just honestly been one of the best teachers that I've ever had.
It's a very informative course. Patrick works with you one-on-one, so if there's any questions or anything you might be doubting or you're uncertain of, he'll definitely be there to help. Honestly, highly suggest this course. It's taught me a lot through my journey.